One of the most important tools nonprofits can utilize to develop, establish, and expand business is collaboration. Collaboration can be implemented in many forms. Today on Connections, we'll explore the first steps leaders can take to build meaningful partnerships, how partnering can further your mission, the many forms of collaboration, and much more. Stay tuned. Welcome to this edition of Connections, where we bring you the issues, the experts, and the strategies to empower your community. I'm your host, Glenn Ogilvie, CEO of the Center for Nonprofit Advancement. Today we're exploring nonprofit partnerships. Our first guest is Chris Gattuso, partner with Kilpatrick, Townsend & Stockton, LLP. Kilpatrick, Townsend & Stockton delivers results-oriented counsel for corporations at all stages of the growth cycle, from the challenging demands of financial transactions and securities to the disciplines of intellectual property management. Chris, thank you for being on the show.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Glenn.
It's good to have you on, a fellow Leadership Washington class member.
That's right, class of 2010.
We love it. Hey, a quick question for you, and it's the connections question. These are questions that help connect our viewers to you and vice versa. The first is the high school you attended, and I know people always say high school, oh, how about college, but it's high school, and your first nonprofit job or nonprofit experience.
Well, the high school I attended was Bishop Hoban High School in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And it was the first year it opened, actually, so we were it was the initial freshman class.
Great.
And my first nonprofit probably was a board seat for an educational nonprofit some years ago.
Okay.
And that got me started in the nonprofit route.
That's great. First class in the high school, breaking the ice.
Yeah.
Tell us about Kilpatrick, Stockton, and Townsend. Tell us about the firm and the type of work you do and the practice that you're most involved with.
Well, as you mentioned, I mean, we're a full-service firm, Glenn, and I'm a corporate lawyer, and our firm provides for nonprofits a whole range of services, anything from, obtaining tax-exempt status to dealing with day-to-day tax questions, corporate governance questions, but we also handle intellectual property issues, contract issues. I mean, it really runs the gamut of almost anything, negotiating real estate leases.
Got it. Got it. And we're talking about partnerships, and you mentioned the gamut, and what we'll cover today is the gamut of everything from networking to partnering to collaboration to even mergers. And I know that your practice at the firm has focused on some mergers. Talk a little bit about that work and what some of the successes you've seen have been, and also some of the challenges.
I think one of the biggest things with any collaboration, whether it be a joint venture or joint program together, or whether it goes all the way through to a merger, is do you have a common vision, a common goal, and is your culture similar? Okay. Because it's really important with two nonprofits getting together that they have a similar view in how to operate and move forward. And there are various different types of collaborations, as you mentioned, and I can kind of go through the list of them. I mean, you can start off with something as simple as, administrative collaboration, where two nonprofits band together for HR services, accounting services. Those are kind of the easier ones, because then the culture may not be as important. To joint programming or joint venturing, some of the joint venturing or joint programming we've seen, if you have a domestic violence crisis center, and it partners with a rape crisis center, and while they both serve different constituencies, they can put on programs together. And programming together is one way of doing it. And then you move a little further down the path and you're really looking at consolidations or mergers. And there's a variety of reasons a nonprofit would go down that path, including, they don't have leadership and they can't find the right leadership, it's harder and harder to raise money for a nonprofit in today's environment.
Sure, sure. So, and you raise a number of great points. You talk about going down the merger path. From your experience, what have been some of the successes for organizations that have gotten that far? And then also some of the challenges that may have prevented it from going the full distance.
I think the things that can lead to success, and what we've seen lead to success, is where you have a good CEO, executive director, board relationship, because it's really important that the board and the management of the nonprofits on the same page in terms of a merger. And similar with respect to the company or the entity you're looking to merge with.
Got it.
So I think that's really important. I think the mission, do you have a similar mission at the end of the day? Where do you want to go? And how do you want to get there? That becomes really important in a merger. And I mentioned earlier the cultural issues. How does your organization operate versus the organization you're looking to merge with? And if you can get those things worked out, you really can go down the path of a successful merger. Granted, there are legal, accounting, and other really important issues you have to deal with, but you have to get through those other issues first.
Sounds like a good amount of paper.
Yes, it is.
But you, and I like that you mentioned collaborating at the earlier levels, sharing the administrative functions. And many of our organizations have done that to reduce costs in this challenging economic time. Have you seen a benefit cost-wise for organizations collaborating and ultimately even for those getting together?
Yes, I think both for, we talked about the sharing of administrative, but it's also sharing of office space. I mean, there's quite a few in the DC area that do that. And sharing of employees, which carries with it some risks, so you always have to be careful on that. And overlapping board members is another area. I mean, because then you get the benefit of each other's board members and the strengths and they could bring and perhaps the fundraising they can bring, which becomes very important.
Right. You talked about the strengths of board members, and I automatically thought about weaknesses being the obvious next go-to. Is there ever a time where merger is not the right solution, and it's realized pretty far down the road as organizations are coming together? And if so, what are some of the things that prevent it from being the right time or right thing to do? I
think there's a couple of things. I think if an organization is in crisis and is looking to merge, that may not be an organization you want to merge with.
Sure.
I mean, that may have more problems than not. I think where we've seen mergers fall apart, due diligence, and that's the legal aspect of it, becomes really important if two nonprofits are coming together. And what that means is looking at and really digging into the governance, the records, the financials of the nonprofit, any litigation, any potential employee issues. We've seen mergers fall apart because of those issues. And we've also seen mergers fall apart because of cultural issues where you can't get to the leadership you want and the board structure you want at the end of the day.
Sure. Well, this is great, and I like that we're talking about partnering first and deeper collaboration. And if it gets the full distance and ends up being a merger because it's the right thing to do, then that's great. But there are so many things that groups can do to maximize and be more efficient in this environment. Other things that you've seen that are surprising to you?
In terms of surprising, I don't know that I've seen things that are surprising, but I think nonprofits, particularly in the last several years when it's been so hard on the fundraising front and the volunteer front, I think people are reaching out more and being a little more creative in terms of how they can fulfill their own mission, continue to fundraise and operate, and seek these strategic relationships and partnerships, whereas years ago they may not have reached out.
That's great. It's good to know that the firm is ready and able to support organizations who are willing to go that far. And it's really good to have you also as a selection committee member on our Board Leadership Award. You've been great to share your time and talent with us.
Well, thank you.
This is really helpful. Thanks, Chris. Coming up, we'll meet Natasha A. Harrison, President of Community Build Ventures, LLC.
Connections showcases nonprofit organizations in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area.
Welcome to this edition of Connections.
We bring you issues, experts, and the strategies that empower our community. Connections topics range from fundraising to capturing media attention and strategic developments of nonprofits.
Thank you for joining us today.
So if you're looking for the best in nonprofit advice, tune in to Connections on DC TV.
People all over DC are waking up to a whole new way to watch television. Now you can stream your favorite programs like the award-winning comedy series The Tom and Taylor Show just by visiting dctv.org.
Come on, girl! I got places to go!
Now you can watch your favorite shows anytime and anywhere. You don't even need cable. Just remember, you don't have to watch it anytime, but you can. Anytime, anywhere.
Welcome back to Connections. Natasha Harrison, President of Community Build Ventures, LLC, joins us. Community Build Ventures is a full-service consulting firm that provides community investment services across private and public sectors. Natasha, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's good having you on, and it's exciting that we've worked together in so many different
Yes,
capacities
yes, we have.
for so long. Two connections questions. We're connected, but we want to connect the viewers to you, right?
Yes.
The first connection question is the high school you attended, and the second is your first nonprofit job or nonprofit experience.
I attended Towers High School in Decatur, Georgia. I am a Georgia Peach.
Awesome.
My first nonprofit job, I worked as a volunteer. That was a job with the Feminist Women's Health Group in Atlanta, Georgia.
Awesome. That's great. And I didn't know either of those things, so connections, it's working. Talk a little bit about Community Build Ventures, the company, the services you provide, and the types of things you've done over the past years or so.
Well, as our name suggests, we provide community building services. Those services include developing community plans, developing asset maps across different communities. We also help corporations with developing employee volunteering and corporate giving campaigns. As well as for nonprofits, we do program design, implementation, and management services, grant administration, conference planning, and training and technical assistance.
You guys are very busy.
Yes,
That's
we
all
are.
great work.
Yes.
Essential, especially in this challenging environment. So those are the services that you're providing nonprofits. We're talking about partnerships, collaboration, ultimately mergers. And I'll tell you quickly that we, for a long time, have been talking to our members about these strategies to moving through the recession. We never used the word merger. We talked about consolidations because it's such a taboo word.
Right, right.
And it evokes so much, emotion.
Right.
But talk about some of the steps leaders can take to get together, to share resources and to work together in partnerships.
Sure. First, before I give my tips, I want to make sure that the viewers understand that I'm talking about real, authentic, living partnerships.
Great.
Not partnerships that, I just want to create this grant application
Got it.
and I need a partner for this. We're
Important
talking,
distinction.
right, this is totally different. And so even before thinking about partnering, you really need to know who you are. Know thyself and be honest about it. Really taking a step back and knowing what your strategy is, your strategic plan, your vision, your mission, your goals, really knowing the lay of the land. And if you have a really grounded strategic plan, you know who's out there.
Right.
You know who's doing the same work. You also know who are the potential funders for your work, who are also potential partners. And you know all the coalitions, all these other organizations that are working, whether it's private and public sector, that are doing the same thing. So that's helpful to really know who you are and also know your culture. Be honest about your culture. You've probably tried to partner in the past. What worked well? What didn't work well?
Got it.
So really think about that. The second thing is, since you have this great strategy, get connected. Begin to join those coalitions already. You'll begin to see those same faces over and over, and you'll hear what their stance is, what they care about as it relates to the same mission that you both share. But some, folks do things a little bit differently. Even though I'm focused on youth development and ensuring young people graduate from school, I may do it different from you. And so when you join those coalitions and you hear their stance on different topics, you begin to know and who you need to align yourself with to kind of create that list of potential partners.
Okay.
The third thing is, I have this list of partners. Now I need to rank them. I need to know, based on what I want and what I can provide for them, what is the most beneficial relationship based on this chart. And then really think about, when you do that lay of the land, really think about, how am I going to make this work? What are the outcomes I want from it? Already begin thinking about that. Of course, when you develop the partnerships, you both will do that together. But kind of think about what your vision is, and typically it's aligned with a program.
Okay.
You want to extend a service. You want to, you want to reach out into a new community maybe that you've never reached out to, that this other organization. So think about that.
Now, quickly, is this still background work before you introduce yourself and let that organization know?
Yes,
Wow.
definitely.
Okay.
You have to know. You have to know about yourself.
Got it.
You have to know that. And be honest about your programming, your culture, and who you are before you begin to venture out. And I think a lot of people make that mistake and and see a grant application. A lot of times, and I've been there. I've worked in nonprofit, and I've been there. You want that immediate gratification of a partnership, and typically it doesn't work out well because you don't know who you are and you don't know what you want this partnership to do for you
Right.
and to do for that other organization, to be mutually, positive. You want it to be positive for both sides.
If you feel as an organization that you think you know yourself, but you'd love some tools and strategies to make sure what your perception is actually the reality, are there things that you can do with your staff and board to help rank and rate yourself?
Oh, definitely. There's SWOT analysis. Everybody does SWOT analysis. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Everybody does that.
Right.
I think also really know about the other interventions. Know about that problem that's in your mission. Really investigate that problem that's in your mission, from what's going down in terms of legislation that will impact what you're trying to do. What is happening in terms of the other organizations that's doing this work? What's happening with the funding community that's trying to make an impact on this same mission and problem that you're trying to address? So it's important that you know the problem like the back of your hand.
Right.
You should be an expert in what you're trying to do. You should know the best practices.
Right.
Even investigate what other cities have tried to do. You really should know that work and how it applies to your community, and knowing that. And once you know that, you know the assets there. It's about knowing the assets. Regardless of what a nonprofit says, you're not the only one that's doing this work or trying to do the same mission.
Sure.
And everyone's doing it, creative ways that, you can learn from each other, which is very beneficial. Because at Community Build Ventures, we really believe that coalition building is the only way to really affect change in these systemic issues. And so you have to do that.
Yeah, I love the work that you're doing. In our last minute or so, talk about how you engage the organization you're interested in partnering with or collaborating with. Is it a phone call? Is it an email? How much is too much? Because we've done a lot of background. We know a lot about them already. But how would you suggest an organization reach out to a potential partner?
Information session. Just invite them and say, hey, I'm doing similar work. Let's talk about what you're doing, and this is what we're doing. Just have a information session. Don't go in for the kill of I need to partner with you, right? But it's more about how, setting that tone for that relationship, making that first step in a potential long-term relationship. And everybody's happy to talk about themselves, right? Everyone's happy to talk about the things that they've done well, things they've learned. In this, in the field that you're in, people are more than happy to do that.
It's fantastic. Great advice. You're doing fantastic work.
Thank you.
And you already have a tremendous reputation with the company, so I'm excited about that.
Thank you.
Glad that we're working together. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
After the break, we'll return with Russ Snyder, President and CEO of Volunteers of America, Chesapeake Incorporated.
Anytime and anywhere. That's right. Now you can watch all of DCTV's award-winning programs, streaming live on your smartphone, your tablet, and your laptop, giving you whole new ways to watch your favorite shows.
Honey, come on, y'all, show is on.
Experience the all-new DCTV.
You don't want to miss this.
Anytime, anywhere.
Welcome back to Connections. We have the pleasure of speaking with Russ Snyder, President and CEO of Volunteers of America, Chesapeake Incorporated. Volunteers of America Chesapeake's mission is to inspire self-reliance, dignity, and hope through health and human services. Russ, thanks for being on the show with us.
Thanks, Glenn. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, we're excited to have you and our team, our membership. You guys are doing great work, and it's always
Thank
good
you.
to spread it around.
Thank you so much.
Two quick connections questions. You may know these questions by now. Connecting you to our viewers. The first question is the high school you attended, and the second is your first nonprofit job or nonprofit experience.
Yeah, Winston Churchill High School in Potomac, Maryland, and as you know, I was in the business community for my first part of my career, and I worked for the nonprofit trade association, so I ran a number of nonprofit trade associations over my 23-year career in the for-profit world.
Excellent. So you know the business, the
Yeah,
work.
a little
Yeah,
bit.
that's exciting. That's exciting. So talk about Volunteers of America. You guys
Sure.
have done great work, growing as I see, and looking good in all of your management capacities. Talk about the organization and some of the priorities.
Yeah, Volunteers America Chesapeake is a faith-based nonprofit organization providing health and human services to, we have 7 different service areas serving veterans, homeless individuals, men and women with intellectual disabilities, men and women suffering from mental illness, and those with substance abuse issues. So we are in 29 different programs throughout Maryland, Virginia, and District of Columbia, and as you said, our mission is to inspire self-reliance, dignity, and hope in everything we do.
That's great. So we're talking about partnerships, collaborations, even mergers if it goes that far. You guys do a great job partnering with other nonprofits and obviously the many areas that you're in. Tell us a little bit about some of those partnerships and the type of things that are important to you.
Sure. What we really take a lens and look through is where we can complement our services. So it's all about providing the best service we can for the 10,000 men, women, and children in our service area. So we look to partners that might have, it might be a medical provider, a medical service system where they would provide a health, other nonprofit to provide some sort of health clinic services to us, where we can expand that and allow that to happen in some of our homeless shelters. Or it could be possibly working with an affiliated housing, affordable housing developer who develops the house and we rent the house from them. So it's all about really trying to make the synergies work and to leverage the resources that you have in the nonprofit world.
Got it. I was just going to ask what makes for a good partnership, but I think your example makes good sense. Any challenges that you experience or things that you're cautious about when you decide to partner with another organization?
Yeah, when we go into these partnerships and we have the conversations with our peers, you know, it's all about really looking at 3 or 4 different factors. The first being, are we aligned mission-wise? Second is the organization ready to absorb that type of partnership and to formalize it? Third is the economics behind it, is why are we doing this, and really is to make sure that there's clear expectations on both sides as to what that partnership's all about. Because you can get in a partnership and it may not add any value to what you're already doing. So those are the areas really focus in on. And
That's
the
fantastic.
challenges.
That's almost exactly what we hear are the things that you need to do as an organization before you go into it. It's good to have the real life example. Talk a little bit about value that you've realized from partnerships, how it's helped you grow, further your mission.
Sure.
Some examples there.
Yeah, I think from the community level perspective, going in with a partnership in somebody in Prince George's County or down in Virginia Beach where we have a homeless shelter, you know, it opens folks' eyes up to what we really do in a mission-based, faith-based organization. So in Virginia Beach, we partnered with 80 different faith-based churches, synagogues, and mosques. And what that's allowed us to do is really provide a very high-quality service and a very caring service to the men and women that are coming out of their shelter. So, you know, the quality, the connection of that, I mean, that's what it's all about when you go into these partnerships, is making sure you're really thinking through what the end result's going to be for the outcomes of those individuals. Just to give you a perspective, last year, out of the 10,000 men, women, and children in our care, we actually placed 1,000 families and individuals into housing, and we didn't do that on our own. We actually did that in our region by working with different partners. A good example would be Arlington Housing Corporation, AHC. Working with that group, they actually provided opportunities for us to place in permanent housing those homeless individuals and really handling the continuum of care model that we try and rely on.
That's great. So obviously you do some due diligence, you engage, it furthers the mission, you get the partnership. How do you evaluate it, and how often do you evaluate how well it's going?
Well, we evaluate it all the time, and it really is each one of our programs, each one of our social service programs, we actually measure outcomes. So if we're not measuring to the levels and the expectations that we've set in the beginning, we'll look for partnerships. We'll say, well, why aren't we getting folks into housing? Why aren't we providing the medical services that we need to? Why aren't they actually meeting their outcomes and their individual plans? And what we do is we really just think outside the box. Right. And it's important in the nonprofit community that you think outside the box these days. There's funding coming in publicly, and you want to utilize that and make that funding go and leverage it as far as possible and provide the best service you can.
It's interesting. Your partnerships are very far and wide geographically. Is it important to have local talent to support your organization as you enter into a new community, maybe as far as Virginia Beach, or
Yeah.
and how do you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really with a very engaged board.
Okay.
It's with a engaged board that has contacts within the community. It might be with the local electeds, it might be with the local business community, the faith-based community. But to me, what I've seen in my time in Volunteers America Chesapeake in my role is success is breeding, is bred really around the community's engagement into what you do and making sure that it's localized. We're a regional organization, but we localize all our services and customize them with community partners as well as with engaging our board members.
Now, I know a lot of organizations are hesitant to partner for any number of reasons. But one of the things that I'm clear on is that you evaluate any partnership, and if it's not working well, then you kind of sever that agreement or arrangement.
Right.
What are some things that, from your perspective, you would say are deal breakers? Not necessarily in your organization, but in general, that would cause either partnership to either not happen or need to be severed?
You know, one of the challenges that we have experienced in not only the nonprofit world, but in the for-profit world is making sure that all our missions or all our objectives are aligned from a business perspective. And if they're not, you know, in the nonprofit world, if the missions aren't aligned and the other partners in it for really spreading their costs, or it's more from the margin perspective versus the mission perspective, it's really not a good fit. It's got to be really for the mission. You got to put the clients or the individuals or the residents you're serving first, and that's what first and foremost what's important, to make sure that they're getting to their goals and making them independent and self-reliant again. So that's our focus. I mean, that's really our mantra, is to make sure that we're providing the best community service, the best residential service we can provide. And with community partners, that helps us bring in other complementary services that are very valuable to them that they might not be able to get with Volunteers America Chesapeake or without.
Sure. Now, last few moments, any quick tips that you would give organizations that are considering engaging in partnerships?
Absolutely. You've heard the words due diligence before, and it's really to make sure you have the appropriate, honest conversations, and you document that. You dig underneath everything, and you just set expectations with the other leaders. And one of the areas from the due diligence side is to make sure that the governance is set properly, that you've got clear lines of responsibility, and you've got, you know, clear evidence-based management practices in place, because that's what at the end of the day is going to determine whether you're successful or not.
It's great. You guys are very strong. I'm really excited by all the success you've had, and really looking forward to what you guys will continue to do into the future.
Yeah, thank you for you and what the center does for us.
It's a ton. Great. Thanks a lot, Russ.
Yeah,
Glad you were here.
Thank you.
Nonprofit partnerships are essential in the success of your organization. Collaboration can range from networking to merging, with nonprofits that exemplify an understanding of your organization's core values. For more information about nonprofit partnerships, contact the Center for Nonprofit Advancement today. Thank you for joining us. Remember to tune in again next week. You can also view Connections and other programs that air on DCTV online. DCTV has launched its on-demand capability, allowing our viewers with high-speed internet access to view shows produced by DCTV. To view shows, visit vimeo.com/DCTV online/channels. Connections is a partnership between DCTV and the Center for Nonprofit Advancement, empowering communities by strengthening nonprofits.